Hi, so today I want to talk about my personal favorite knitting tools. Having tools that you enjoy working with makes a world of difference in the quality of your knitting and how much you're actually going to sit down and put the work into it. First, I'm going to start with needles. I prefer doing all of my knitting on round needles. A needle that is connected at both ends. Now, these are typically used to knit in the round because you can, you know, make a full circle with them. I find for very large pieces like blankets or even some sweaters, knit with the round needles because it kind of relieves pressure on your wrists. It doesn't get as heavy versus having like a very long needle that's completely loaded up with stitches. It gets heavy on the one side. But this, basically everything kind of rests in the middle as you work your way through, and it's just like normal needles, like straight needles, where you can, once you're finished your round, instead of just like, you know, joining it into a round, you can flip and start again. Now, straight needles are great for small projects, but I prefer round needles, and straight needles is what I would suggest to a new knitter just because they tend to be a little bit easier so you understand where things end. But I like them round, baby. Now to that, you may notice that these round ones are bamboo. I prefer knitting with bamboo needles. It's taken me a little bit to discover that they're the best for me. They're a little bit more expensive than like acrylic needles, but I like that they have a little bit of a grip to them now that I'm into doing more complicated styles of knitting. I can't imagine cable knitting on like metal or acrylic needles. They just slip a lot. Bamboo needles give you a lot more control. I have some double pointed needles where I like using these when I knit very small things in the round. I'm better at double pointed needles on small things than doing what's called magic loop knitting, where you use very long round needles. But anything that's small, tight, or intricate, I prefer using bamboo needles. I mentioned cable knitting, and another very useful tool that I've discovered is just actually picking up cable needles. They're usually little bent needles like this, where as you pull the stitches off to pull forward or pull backwards, it has a little notch in there that kind of holds them still. I had used just a straight needle before to do it, like a double pointed straight needle, and it was a little complicated for me. But these work out great, and they come in a variety of size. I, picked up just a cute little packet of like plastic cheap ones because I wanted to give them a try before investing in anything better, but I still use them. They still work great. You will thank me when you finally start using stitch markers if you haven't. For those patterns where you need to count a lot, these are great because you put them on the needle where you need to go. And a lot of patterns call for stitch markers because it'll be like knit one before the marker. I like these that you can open up because I can sit there with it laid out in front of me, my work in front of me, and I can do all my counting without having to knit, so it's only one task at a time because I'm not the best at counting or keeping count while I'm actually knitting. So these are great because you can slip them on the needle wherever you want to, or if you miscount, you don't have to wait till you get to that marker to pull it off. You can open it up, pull it off right away. The only downside is it's got, some pokey parts, so it can sometimes like pull the yarn or pull a stitch, and that's not the best, but I still like these. I really want to get like pretty dainty ones that have like beads and stuff. I'll look on a nice Etsy shop and try to find some. A yarn needle or a darning needle. It's the only way you're ever going to be able to weave in your ends of a finished work successfully. I did it for a long time with an old crochet hook, and they just never looked as nice. Like really, a darning needle, it makes a world of difference. What makes it different from a normal sewing needle is it's a little bit more dull, so it's not going to hurt if you touch it. but it's got a huge opening so that you can fit your actual yarn in. And they do come in a bunch of different sizes and lengths depending on what you're doing. Get yourself a tape measure. I like these soft ones. You can always have a ruler if that's what you have floating around your house. I prefer these flexible ones because you're able to take contour measurements like around your arm. You wouldn't be able to do that with a ruler or a normal like retractable tape measure. But you can also just measure how long something is. You can measure your bust. It's great. And they're a little bit more comfortable too. I knit a lot of things for babies and toddlers, and they like to be squirmy, and this is, you know, flexible. It's not going to hurt them when you're trying to measure their noggin. And they're just like, I don't want a stranger to touch my face. I highly recommend you actually measure your pieces, especially when you start doing things where it has to be even on each side. Like a scarf, maybe not. You can always try that on. That's pretty easy. But something where, like, it's a sweater and you want to know how long it needs to be. How long's your torso so you don't accidentally have a crop sweater. Or how long is each arm because you don't want to have one sleeve longer than the other. Those type of things. Oh, the internet is a huge tool for modern day knitters. You can research anything, you can look up anything. That's probably how you found me. If you haven't heard of Ravelry.com, it's fantastic. I will link it down below. It's essentially a social media network for knitters. You can post and discover other people's patterns, and it'll link you to like blogs and websites that have to do with those patterns or those people and designers. It's fantastic. If I didn't know about Ravelry.com, I probably wouldn't be at the level of knitting that I am now. It's great because you can search between knitting and crochet. You can search for specific things. It has a search engine feature, and you can go between paid for knit patterns, or they have a lot of free ones. Like they have thousands of free patterns, and it's fantastic. And you can save projects. That's what essentially my next tool is. I just have a binder that I just have completely full of patterns that I've printed out that I've discovered off of Ravelry.com. Every pattern's a little bit different, but it's fantastic. It's a great tool. I highly recommend if you're knitting for the first time, don't print out absolutely everything, you know, save the trees, all that. But printing out your first few patterns is great because then you can take like a sticky note and you can follow along with where you are. I like to take a sticky note since you can peel it off and put it down, especially with things like a chart where you can lay your sticky note down where you are. As you knit through it, peel it up, move on to the next one so that you don't get lost in just looking at a block. But then again, with sticky notes and having it written down, you can have a pen with you. Take notes, write what's confusing to you, write how you did it. Say if there's a technique that you've never done before, such as like a slip knit, you can write down, oftentimes it's abbreviated like SSK, be like, I don't remember what that is. You can write in your margin. You can write in your margins that SSK equals slip knit, and then you can describe what it is so that as you're going back and you're knitting and you know, next day when you go back, you can be, oh, what was that? What does SSK mean again? But I don't remember how to slip knit. Oh, but I took a second and wrote the note of how to do it. That's my tip too. If you're a beginner, print out your patterns, have some post-it notes around and a pen, write down some notes. It just makes things a little bit clearer for you as you work through it, because you may not just be sitting and doing an entire pattern in one day. You may go back like a week later and be like, I have no idea where I am in this. Oh, I laid down a sticky note of where I was in the pattern, and now I can just pick it up right where it left off. I think that's all I have for tools that I really enjoy using. Oh, I forgot one. Hold on. Get yourself a basket. I like to keep a basket full of my active work because, you know, everything lives within the basket. And then as you pull your work out to knit, it has a place for your ball or your skein or the rest of your tools to rest as you do your work. So a basket is very helpful. It helps just keep everything organized. It gives it a place to live before your project's complete. Oh, and I forgot too, a pair of scissors. They don't have to be great. I used kitty scissors, craft scissors, like the safety scissors for a long time because I was like, this isn't probably going to be a hobby that I'm going to keep up for 20 years. Yet here I am. So I have good scissors. They're actually old fabric scissors that are not good enough to be used on fabric anymore. So they work great for yarn. They cut really well. Those are my tools. And you can always keep them all in one spot. So I'm Kerry. I hope you had a great time today. I hope you have a little bit more confidence when it comes to knitting, and love to hear what you do. Just keep knitting. Bye.